Thank you all for coming out to the ASC Town Hall meeting. We've recently had our core approved, not only our core, but the core assessment. And so shortly, we're going to have a huge gathering of a bunch of key full-time faculty members to make sure that the work that's being done on the core assessment is being done appropriately. And we're going to try and gain some efficiencies there. The Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board asks us to assess our new core, but then we also have SAC's general ed assessment that has to be done as well. So faculty are going to be working to make sure that those are integrated, and we don't want to reinvent the wheel, so we'll try and make sure to the extent possible that those two areas of assessment dovetail nicely together. So I see a bunch of faculty here from the B building, so thank you all for your efforts in getting the core approved and the assessment underway. So that's kind of a small update about things going on at this facility and instruction in general. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to our president, Dr. William Serrata.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Good morning and welcome to everyone. It's certainly my pleasure to just give an update, and I won't take very long with regards to the update, and then we get into question and answer if anyone has any specific questions. So first and foremost, a couple of things that I want to review today is 6 areas. Really want to go over an update of where we are with the Southern Association Commission on Colleges, SAC-COC. Talk about enrollment and the strategies that we're implementing to bounce back with regards to enrollment, and as well as some of the reasons why we did see the decline, and we actually planned for it. I want to touch on the compensation study that is moving forward and let everyone know where we are with that. The district-wide master plan, that was the meeting I had right before this particular meeting to finalize that particular piece and give everyone an update of where we are with regards to the district-wide master plan. I do want to talk about Professional Development Day and the strategy that we're moving forward. And then we'd be remiss if we don't tell our own story, if we don't celebrate our own successes, then we can't expect anyone else to. And so we need to make sure that at every opportunity that we sing our own praises, that we hear, that I say thank you for the wonderful work that is occurring at this institution, in particular at this respective Administrative Services Center. So this is, I guess, the 4th update that we've had and we've gone through. And so let's just really jump right into it. The Southern Association, our report is due actually in about 2 weeks, exactly 2 weeks. Our report is due on April the 15th. As you know, the Southern Association came in, we submitted all our documentation late 2011, early 2012 to SAC-COC. The way that they have it, it's an off-site team that meets in Atlanta. They review all the documentation that all institutions submit to them, and then at that point they deem areas that need further review, areas of concern that they may have. And so from the offsite team, they look at 93 different areas, and they came down to 12 and said, we need additional information with these respective 12. Then we had an on-site visit that came in early early October of 2012, late October actually, because they were here right close to Halloween. And upon that, they said, okay, there's 6 areas that we feel that you need further documentation. We provided that documentation, sent it as a response to that report, and then the board at SAC said, okay, there's 3 areas that we still are not satisfied. And those 3 areas were with regards to full-time faculty. So let's give an update of where we are with regards to full-time faculty. And what they did is they said, let's look at the percentages of where you are, the percentage of sections that are taught by full-time faculty. And we looked at a 10, 12-year period. We had never hovered anywhere between 47 and 52% on full-time faculty. We never were less than 1 percentage point in any one given year either way. And when SACs came, we were just under 48% when they came and looked at us, and that was as a whole. What they did is they turned around and said, we don't only want to see where you are as a whole, as a district, we want to see where you are at every campus and every program that you offer at that respective campus. And that's when they finally gave us the clear direction of where we needed to be. Well, a lot of kudos to Mr. Smith, the deans, human resources, all the support areas for really moving this forward, and obviously to the Board of Trustees who approved an 8% increase in our taxes, which generated the revenue that we needed to move forward in hiring full-time faculty. We hired 48 full-time faculty, approximately 48 between the fall and the spring, and we are now showing that our preliminary data shows 60% of our sections are taught by full-time faculty. So we far exceeded the benchmark, and we're very happy with the progress that has come forward. They were non-competitive one-year appointments, and then we agreed that we would go through a competitive process. They're all going through competitive processes right now. I see them. I sit with each of the respective committee as they come through. Again, a lot of work that went into this, and certainly appreciate all of the support that we received from throughout the district, in particular Human Resources, Finance, and then obviously the leadership of Mr. Smith and the deans to get all these particular areas moving forward. Again, that snapshot in 10-11 was about 47%, and you see that we're at 60%. Quite an accomplishment for all of this particular work. Ultimately, we believe that this will help facilitate student success as well. So that was the core requirement. That was 2.8. Anytime that you have a finding, so to speak, and a core requirement, it's automatic sanction. And so we automatically went on to warning. And it's somewhat backwards. Warning is actually not as punitive as probation. Probation would be the next step. So we're on warning. We're submitting all of our paperwork to the Southern Association. That is due on April the 15th. And then we'll hear back from them sometime in June, probably mid-June, on whether we have submitted and we have provided enough documentation and evidence to deem reaffirmed. We are fully accredited, and we'll remain fully accredited whether we are deemed eligible for reaffirmation or not in June. The process, the way that it works is once you're placed on warning, you have up to 2 years to eliminate the warning status, to take care of whatever issues they have concerns with. If for some reason it's not satisfactory to the Southern Association this summer, then we have 1 more year to deal with it. And then at that point, if they said it's still not satisfactory, which I highly doubt, they would then say you are now going into probation status, which is also a 2-year process. Now, we've worked really hard, and again, kudos to everyone in this room, all the support areas, all the leadership from the faculty, the deans, and instruction. We believe that we'll be reaffirmed this summer based on everything that we've done. Faculty was the first area that we had to address. In addition to that, the other two were not core requirements. They're what we call comprehensive standards. And the comprehensive standards is a series of areas. Included in there are 3311 and 3312. These are institutional effectiveness. Now, there's also a core requirement that is institutional effectiveness. We were found in compliance with the core requirement, which means we do institutional effectiveness, but there were 2 areas where they felt that we needed to do a little bit more, and that was in 3311, which is student learning outcomes. So what have we done to address student learning outcomes? Well, in addition to the great work that we were already doing, and what they said is we had not submitted a representative sample. So we're submitting all of our student learning outcomes in all of our particular programs. But we also hired Maria Gomez as our Director of Student Learning Outcomes, someone dedicated to looking at this particular area on an ongoing basis, working with the programs, working with the faculties and the deans as well to go through student learning outcomes. In addition, we've also hired consultants to review this. I'm very proud of our institution, as each of you all is, but this is not the time to be proud. This is the time to say, if we need assistance, let us have a 3rd, a 4th, a 5th set of eyes, look at our documentation, be critical towards us and say, this is where we don't see that you're meeting this particular requirement. So we've moved forward with that. Assessment has to be part of what we do and everything that we do. We need to not just do things because we have a gut reaction, because this is what we think is best. It should be based on data. It should be based on the analysis of the data. We implement it. If it works, we institutionalize it. If it doesn't work, we tweak it or we eliminate it. It's okay to stop doing something that does not work. And in this day of limited resources and a tightening of the budget, we have to do that. We have to determine what are we doing right now that we shouldn't be doing, and let's stop doing that. Now, obviously, if it's a federal law, if it's a requirement, we have to do those particular things. In addition to 3311, which is student learning outcomes, they also talked about 33112, which is the administrative units. So every single administrative unit has to have an institutional effectiveness plan. And what they said here was that they didn't see, we weren't documenting that we were closing the loop. So we have to develop a plan based on data and the analysis of the data. We have to then measure whether we're making progress on those particular goals. And then what are we changing? What are we learning? You have to show learning in the administrative units as well. And so one of the examples, Vice President Gonzalez and Darrell Henry eliminated late registration. And so we would expect that there's some learning that would occur from that. Do students now register on time? Well, obviously, if we eliminate it, they have to. So how are we showing learning? Well, we take the last cohort that we allowed to register late, and then we measure their progress. We measure how well they did. And when we've done this in the past, when I did this in the past, we could show that those students not only registered on time, but they did better as far as their grades. They learned. They were in class on time, and therefore they were able to learn. So assessment will be part, and you all know me well enough as far as the data and how important the data is to me to measure everything, with the caveat that we always remember that there's a face behind every single data point at this institution. We're trying to effectively impact lives in the El Paso region. Enrollment is a big part of what we do. And as I said, I'm sure you read the Times as I do, and in the fall semester you saw, El Paso Community College, largest enrollment decline in the state. Well, it was one of the largest. It wasn't the largest, but it was one of the largest in the state. And we actually did two things. We eliminated late registration. When I did this in the past, it had about a 3% impact on enrollment. Well, we had a 5.5% decline. What else did we do in the fall? Well, we had to limit the number of sections that we provided with regards to adjuncts because of our percentages with the Southern Association. So those two things combined, we saw a decline of about 5.5% in the fall, and we saw a similar decline this spring. Now, the expectation and what I've seen in the past is that students learn, and they will now bounce back. And so we have to look at the different enrollment strategies to bounce back, and I'll get a little bit more deeply into those particular strategies. So one of the enrollment strategies that we're looking at, we're not only going to work smarter, we're not only going to work harder, we have to work smarter. So what kind of tools can we provide for everyone to help this institution work smarter and ensure that we're utilizing our resources to the fullest of our ability? A lot of kudos to Dr. Huron and her team. I saw Gary walk into the room. All of information services, information technology, they have done a tremendous job of utilizing technology, implementing, and we're in the implementation phase right now of Serrata Learning. And what Serrata Learning does, in December, those of you that participated in the Leadership Academy, I see Dean Webb in the room. Dean Webb was part of the Leadership Academy graduates and presented, in particular his one was on, we need an app. We've got to, students, it's intuitive for them, and so we've got to have an app. And there was more than half of the presentations that we heard with regards to applications and putting the data into students' hands. I full-heartedly agree with that, and I was actually very pleased and wasn't ready because until the board acts, it's kind of difficult for me to report on something. But we had on the board agenda the approval of Serrata Learning. And so we knew that Serrata Learning was, if we tried to develop apps, and that's wonderful for us to do that, but if someone else has already had the expertise, has already put the resource to develop them, and it is merely us implementing them, then that's a better use of our time and resources, as well as learning. And so Serrata, those of you all that have a Latin background or you're a good Catholic like me and you remember Latin from catechism classes, Serrata means community. And so it's really community learning, and we're implementing Serrata Learning, and it puts the apps into the hands of the students, which is what we're trying to do. Apps like Degree Map. And so Degree Map is both for our counselors and advisors, as well as faculty, as well as the students. They have access themselves, and what it shows students is they can get into their Degree Map, into their degree plan, and it shows them, here are the courses that I'm enrolled in, here's based on a speedometer, how far in my degree plan I am. If I switch majors, here's how far. I could be further. We know that we have some students that take courses out of their majors, or some students that major in nursing and allied health and haven't been officially accepted into a particular program. It will then turn and say, if I switch majors, this is how much further I have to go, how many more credits, and how much more it'll cost based on tuition and fees at El Paso Community College. It's tailored towards what we do at this particular institution. We're very excited about the possibilities of moving this particular area forward. My apologies, I got ahead of myself. So let me go back to Texas Completes an Early Alert. This institution has been dedicated to completion for some time. We're a round one Achieving the Dream institution. We started that work in 2004, so we've been doing that work for a decade. And we're looking at how do we get to the next level. Well, Completion by Design was a Gates initiative that was 4 states that were participating. Well, they got to the end in Texas and thought in the summer of 2012, Texas is too big to be successful, is what the evaluation from the Gates Foundation was. And so they decided not to fund Texas. The 5 institutions that were working on Completion by Design, they had a conference call, and Dr. Roberts did a great job of representing El Paso Community College, and they all agreed, we're moving forward. We'll fund this ourselves without the funding from the Gates Foundation. We, the 5 institutions, will move this forward. And so Texas Completes was born. And we continue to move forward with Texas Completes. And what we're looking at is college-wide teams to determine early alert with regards to our at-risk students, as well as engaging our faculty with our students. That is the #1 predictor of student success. If we have a student that's engaged with faculty, that connects with a faculty member, that student's going to be successful. So in the fall of 2012, Mr. Smith challenged the faculty to have some sort of feedback mechanism, a quiz, any kind of thing in those first 3 weeks to get back to students and say, here's how you're doing in my class. Spring of 13, those students then determine and they report out on how they felt. Was that happening? So in 2012, we were at 51% of our students saying that they got prompt feedback within the first 3 weeks. When we measured again after that challenge in 2013, statistically significant increase up to 58.7%. So our faculty rose to that challenge. They provided that feedback. We're now upping the ante, so to speak. In this past fall, Mr. Smith challenged the faculty once again, and the SESI actually is being administered this month. And so we'll see where we are. And again, to increase the engagement between faculty and students. Already spoke to Serrata, sorry. That was me looking at the bottom of the page rather than the top of the page. In addition to Serrata, what else are we doing to work smarter? We're implementing a series of technology tools. The Kresge Foundation funded Ad Astra. Ad Astra looks at our scheduling and determines the efficiency of our scheduling based on student needs. So in the fall, as a former English faculty member, if I have 3,000 students taking Comp 1 in the fall, and we have a success rate of about 75%, 80% in 1301, and our persistence rate is 89% from fall to spring, then how many sections of 1302 should I be offering in the spring? At what times, etc. And so Ad Astra helps us do that. It looks at the entire district and the efficiency of our scheduling and helps us ensure that we're providing the schedule that students need so that they can be successful. A lot of kudos to all of our programmers, to all of our IT folks that are implementing this, to Daryl Henry, who's working with them on this particular area. What else are we doing? College Scheduler LLC. College Scheduler is, so when I was a student, I used to take what we called the class schedule, which was printed still. We no longer do those kinds of things, which is wonderful. We want to be as green as we possibly can and utilize and save our resources. But in there, it had a paper document that had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. No weekend classes back then, or at least at my institution. And so I would say, okay, based on my schedule, these are the classes that I want, there's the faculty, and so I would write in a pseudo schedule. And then at that time, it was telephone registration. And the phone number was 260-3212. That's scary that I remember that. That was 27 years ago. And I still remember dialing in, and you had to get on campus because the off-campus, there are only so many phone lines, the programmers will know this, dedicated to the off-campus students, even though there were 30,000 students off campus. There were more phone lines on campus for the 10,000 students that lived on campus. So I had to stand in line and wait for a phone and then dial that number. And then based on my written schedule, I would then try to register for those particular courses. Well, what these young men did, and young ladies, students at a Cal State in Northern California, they, 5 years ago saw that people were still writing schedules as a pseudo schedule. What they did is say, okay, let's turn around and let's automate that and say, okay, here's the schedule that I would like to have. And College Scheduler will then read through our 30,000 sections or so and determine which is the, based on the student needs and desires, they hit it and it says, here's the best schedule based on what you said were your parameters. And then they turn around and interfaces with Banner and allow students to register to then turn around and lock that schedule into the Banner system. So these are the kinds of things that we look at as far as utilizing and being more efficient and doing things from a student success lens, doing things from based on the data that help students be successful. All of this in order to increase our opportunities with regards to enrollment. In addition, when we look at graduation at the end of every year, and I have the privilege of shaking hands as students walk across the stage. And then I also go to a lot of the early college, high school ceremonies that they have at their respective campuses at Northwest or at Mission. And what I notice is, despite the fact that our enrollment right now is about 58% female, 42% male, what we notice is about 2/3 of our degrees and certificates are earned by females, are earned by ladies, which is wonderful. But the last time I checked the U.S. Census data, this nation and the world actually is about 50-50. And so what we're starting to see is we're starting to see young men and male students in particular, male students of color, that are not engaging in higher education. They're not participating at the same levels as our young ladies, and they're not being as successful once they do participate. And there's a looming crisis. It's been recognized by the College Board nationally. It's been recognized by the coordinating board statewide. And so we have the privilege of being a part of the Texas Education Consortium for Male Students, in which we are trying to ensure participation and success of young men. It's not a zero-sum game. We're not going to stop doing the great things that we're doing for young ladies or for ladies in general at this institution that are enrolled with us, but we need to see. So in the 70s, the lines crossed.